Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I'm your host as usual, and obviously welcome back to the show. Today's episode 187 of the show, and before we get started, a bit of house cleaning quick, because, well, you guys know what I like to do around here, and it only makes sense that we do it, so let's just get on with the house cleaning. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening. Today's episode, it really does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly keep downloading these episodes, you keep sharing these episodes, you constantly keep letting me know how you feel, whether you like my stupid face or not, because let's be real here. My face obviously looks a little bit different if you're watching the video versions. I've clearly shaven and gotten a haircut, so you get babyface me, which is kind of ironic because given that I've lost a lot of weight and the fact that I look like this again, people say I look like how I was in high school when I was 18. So, man, I can't believe how much losing weight and getting a haircut can obviously make you look like you lost 3 years. But I do want to say thank you guys for everything. It really does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly are interacting with the show. That you guys constantly keep just being awesome, to be honest. I really appreciate it. I do want to say thank you to the Patreon backers for supporting the show because, well, you guys support the show and you get early access to the episode. So thank you guys so much for that. I really appreciate it. And if you're, want to become a Patreon backer, you can just click the link down below. Oh, jeez. You can click the link down below to become a Patreon backer. It's only $2 a month, so you can just get early access to the episodes if that's what you want to do. But I also want to say thank you guys for the total downloads. We've already hit, I think, 2650. So we're almost there, almost at 3,000. But enough with all that stuff. Let's get on with today's episode because I actually didn't do a poll this week for the episode. I actually wanted to do something that's been on my mind for a little bit, and I wanted to have a discussion about it because I also want to make this clear. This isn't a review. This is just my impressions of it. Now, if you want me to do a review, I'll do a review. So, but without further ado, what are we actually talking about? Because I actually didn't say anything what we're talking about. So, we're going to be talking about the new iPad mini. And this is the iPad mini. I have it right here in front of me. So you're probably thinking, why the iPad mini? Why did you even get one? I thought you had the iPad Pro. So I want to explain my rationale behind getting the mini and why I will be using the mini going forward for the foreseeable future. And I just want to explain that rationale because I feel like it's easy to just do a review of the iPad mini and then just talk about all the features, like basically do spec regurgitation, like, just regurgitate the specs and just talk about, the user experience. And I'm like, well, let's actually talk about the rationale. What happens if you go from the Pro to the mini? And I get it. We're going to be addressing a lot of the conversation that's been going around the mini in the episode as well. But here's my rationale behind it. And you don't have to agree with me. You could probably think I'm crazy for this, but hear me out here. So I originally, when I saw the Apple event, you guys know my reactions. We obviously talked about the Apple event. I went on record and said that the iPad mini was the most exciting product that they showed off at the event, which is true. I think that's fair given what we've seen so far with the iPhone 13s, that in my opinion, I feel like people are just celebrating Apple or praising them for the absolute bare minimum, which, spoilers, that's how I feel about the iPhone 13, is that it just feels like we're praising Apple for the absolute bare minimum and nothing is truly substantially different. The user experience is not different. But the mini is something different. It's something new. It's obviously something people wanted with the mini form factor, which was the bigger display and obviously more in line with the modern design, and then obviously using USB Type-C, having access to the new Apple Pencil. And for me, I had the 2020 11-inch iPad Pro. And I really liked it, especially for my use case that I was in still school, or obviously I still am in school, but I used it a lot for schoolwork. So instead of having a laptop, I would just use my iPad. I would type up documents on it. I would do a lot of my coding assignments on it because a lot of the applications were either in C++ or in Python or in Java, which I can get an application and get a code compiler on my iPad. So I'm able to do all that stuff on there as well. And if I wanted to, I could also edit videos on it whenever I wasn't near my computer, or say I wanted to use Photoshop on it. But then a lot of my assignments, once I switched over to marketing, I had to actually get a laptop because some of my assignments required specific software that couldn't be run on iPad, like anti-cheating software. I can't use it on my iPad, or say Microsoft Access. You can't use Microsoft Access on Mac OS or even iPads in general. It just won't work. It's one of the only Microsoft applications that doesn't work, even though it's kind of similar to Excel, but not really. It's primarily for databases and things like that. So I was like, crap, I had to go get a laptop. So I had to spend a good amount of money for a laptop that can do all my assignments and last me a long time. And for me, I haven't done a review about it or talked about it or anything like that. I got the Acer Swift X, and so far I've been loving this laptop. It's been a great experience so far. And if you guys want me to talk about it, I'll definitely talk about it, or, have a discussion regarding it. But I was like, okay, we have this good laptop, we have a good iPad, and we have this desktop. Something's got to give here, bud, because the iPad at this point, rather than being a useful tool for school and everything like that, just became a media device. I literally was just using it to watch videos or watch YouTube or, watch HBO Max or watch any, just content. And that was it. That's all it was really used for, playing Clash of Clans. Wow, holy cow. I said Clash of Clans in 2021. Ooh, people look at me like I'm crazy, but that's all I used it for. And I was like, well, why do I need this thing around anymore? It doesn't do what I needed to do anymore. My use case has now changed. And a lot of people will say, well, you're better off just buying the Pro anyways. The promotion is so noticeable. And I was like, well, let me go try out the Mini in store. So I went to my local Best Buy. I saw the Mini in person, and I was like, I love the form factor. I love the feel in the hands. For me, this is perfect for just watching content because that's what I want. And, being somebody that owns an iPhone SE, I have a smaller phone. So obviously viewing content is not the best on it, but it can still do the job. So having a much bigger display, having a much more potent device for that content, I'd say viewing the content, but I would also say, like, if I want to play games on it, I can. It's a much more comfortable experience, especially holding the iPad mini compared to my iPad Pro. Actually physically in the hands, it's a much better experience because it's obviously smaller, it's more manageable, and I don't have to worry about the Face ID sensor because it's Touch ID, which I prefer Touch ID over Face ID, which it's not a big shocker. I've told people this multiple times. I prefer Touch ID over Face ID. It's more reliable, it's more practical, it's more useful. And I still think it's kind of dumb that Apple didn't put Touch ID in the power button, even though they did it on the iPad mini, they did it on the iPad Air, they didn't do it on the iPhones, which I still think is stupid because you easily could have done it. It's not hard, guys. You easily could have done it, you just didn't want to do it. But I ended up selling my iPad Pro. I sold the keyboard case, I sold the pencil with it because they gave me more money, so I might as well just give them the pencil. And then I bought the mini, I bought a new Apple Pencil, and I got this really good case that looks like a composition notebook, so it kind of screws with my professors a little bit because they're like, ooh, easier to take notes. Nah, fam, I'm here to play Clash of Clans. I'm kidding. I don't do that in class. I actually pay attention in class. I know my mom's probably gonna be like, hey, I thought you were paying attention in class, and I'm like, I know, I am, totally. But that was my rationale with getting the mini. So how have I been enjoying it so far? Because a lot of people will be asking me that, and I will be addressing, as I mentioned before, some of the concerns that have risen and my perspective on them. For me, the experience has been really good. I've enjoyed my time having the mini. So far, it's basically done what I've wanted to do. It's a great little device for viewing content, great device for taking notes, great device for, being a secondary companion to my phone and my laptop and my PC, because obviously, yes, my computer is in the room to do all the big heavy lifting. That's why we have a big beefy processor inside of this sucker, so it chugs through all this video, chugs through all these photo editings, chugs through whatever multi-tabbed assignment, whatever I want to do. I could just throw everything in the computer, will do it. I'm just being honest with you. The laptop, does everything I need it to do when I'm in class. If I need to take notes, if I need to view a presentation, or if I need to take a test or take a quiz on it with a anti-cheating software, does it. And the laptop itself is very potent in its own right. It runs the 57 or the Ryzen 7 5800U mobile processor with a 3050 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, dual channeled at 4266 megahertz, and a 512 gigabyte SSD, which I can put in another SSD if I want to, which I probably will. I'm just being honest with you. Having more storage would actually be really good. And then the mini. The mini is when I'm just in my room, or say I'm doing laundry, I'm going to go to the bathroom and just view content. That's basically what the mini does. And I can also play my Clash of Clans on there. I can take it with me. It's very easy, light on the bag, so it's not big and heavy like my 11-inch iPad Pro. And I know some people say, Josh, doesn't it seem stupid though? Like, you had a much better tablet. It was better in every way. And I'm like, well, no, like, I've always said this, that to me, the iPad Pro is one of the best, or if not the best tablet on the market. And in terms of Apple's lineup, I still think it's the best if you have the need for it, which in this case, I don't see the need for the iPad Pro right now. Even though, yes, it is an incredible tablet, it's the best tablet in Apple's lineup, I'd still say the mini is the better value, even though some people say, well, for $100 more, you might as well buy the Air, or for the bigger display and expandability with the keyboard case, or just buy the regular base iPad. But I'm like, in my mind, why though? You know, like the Air, people are like, oh, if you want to use a keyboard, I'm like, that it's a more proper laptop replacement. There are some applications, just being honest with you, especially with how Apple's take on iOS 15 or iPad OS 15, they've clearly shown that they don't want to take the iPad into a more professional route. They've shown that, and they probably won't. So it's not going to be 100% laptop replacement. I'm sorry, but it just can't. Like, there's some very specific workloads that it just can't replace. There's some that it's useful for and that it can replace. I say, like, you know, for obviously making beats or making music or video editing and stuff like that, you know, editing photos on the go. But I'd say, like, if you're trying to do a lot of compiling or a lot of Excel spreadsheets, or, you know, or if you need Microsoft Access for your work or engineering workflows, then yeah, the iPad Pro is not really going to do the best for you, but just being honest here. And at the same time, like, yeah, let's talk about the 120 hertz display. I don't really notice the difference, to be honest. Like, yes, I do understand that some people have been reporting issues with the iPad mini where there's a gelling, I'd say jello effect that people also noticed on the iPad Air. And it's ironic that that they didn't care when the iPad Air like had this issue, because most of the people showing it were just recording the screen in super slow motion just to show. And I'm like, well, yes, this is expected with an LCD 60 hertz panel. Like, this isn't a defect. This isn't like, and you can only notice it when it's in super slow motion, because I don't notice it. I'm just being genuinely honest with you. I don't notice it. Now, does that mean that it's an issue for other people? Yeah. Well, yeah, it is an issue, because if somebody notices it, then hey, it's going to bother them. But if it doesn't bother you and you don't notice it, then it's not an issue for you. And just being clear about that. This isn't me defending Apple. And if this really is like some issue with the iPads, I hope Apple does come out and actually fix these things. I do recommend that I always say this, no matter what Apple product you have, get Apple Care. Just get Apple Care, guys. It's literally affordable. It's cheap. Pay the monthly fee. I always say get the monthly option rather than the upfront cost, because the monthly option, if you plan on holding the product for a much longer time, then it's actually much more useful and valuable, because then, say if you hold on to your device for 5 years, you can honestly get a replacement with not that much issue, because it lasts as long as you keep paying for it. So I just say the monthly option is better for long-term use and long-term, having the tablet or phone or whatever you have. But to me, the gelling effect, I noticed that a lot of people that are just trying to point it out are always recording in slow motion. So I don't think that's a fair thing to say. Like, if you don't notice it at normal use, then, it just feels like people are trying to be, or making an issue out of something that's not really that big of an issue. Let's just be real. They're just trying to find something to complain about. There's also been discussions about, is the iPad mini the most overhyped iPad? And I'm like, I can see that. I don't think it is. I think the most overhyped iPad was the M1 processors, the iPad Pros. But no one wants to talk about those suckers because they're literally straight overkill. Like, there's no use case that will ever, I'd say, in current iOS 15 or iPad OS 15, whichever you want to call it, there's no need for that much power. There's no need for 16 gigs of RAM. There's no need for the M1 processor. There's literally no use for it because nothing uses it to the fullest potential. There's nothing. It's just objective fact. There's no application that will push those iPads to their limit. There's none. And some people say, well, what about Genshin Impact? And I'm like, well, in terms of that, yeah, for gaming, but in terms of actual productive workflow, like actually doing something like with production or work, yeah, it doesn't change anything, bud. You're still going to keep using your iPad the same way. Like, I guarantee you, if you had the 2020 iPad Pro and bought the 2021 iPad Pro, I guarantee you aren't going to do anything differently. And let's keep in mind, the mini LED display, while great in its own right, has plenty of flaws that have not been addressed. So that's another reason to not really care about the 2021 iPad Pros. I'm just being honest with you. If they didn't make the 2020 iPad Pros, then yeah, I agree. Then we would have had something important. But the 2020 iPad Pro is definitely still extremely capable, still one of the best values to buy. I highly recommend it if you can find it, because obviously there's people selling their iPad Pros right now. I did too. But where does that leave us with the Mini? And for me, I know this isn't a review. This is just me giving my thoughts about it, my initial impressions. And if you want me to do a review, then I will do it, because I will give the people what they want. But in my opinion, I don't think this is the most overhyped iPad in the lineup. I think it is one of the most important in the lineup, given that its form factor, the performance that it gives, and what this offers to a lot of people if this fits your use case. Because like I said, there's the beauty of the iPad lineup having so many iPads. Like, you have the 329 iPad, the super entry level, then you have the Mini, then you have the Air, then you have the Pros. Each of these iPads serve a different use case, and there's a different customer and a different buyer. There is no such thing as one perfect product for everybody. That does not exist. That never will exist. There's always going to be specific products for specific customers, and those specific customers will always keep buying those products. No matter which way you try to argue that, the numbers speak for themselves, bud. Humans literally do that all the time. There's a reason why this idea of, I would say, specialization is starting to become more prevalent, because people are starting to realize, hey, I'd rather purchase a product that's specialized for my use case. Like, prime example, we've seen this with cameras in the camera industry. There's specific cameras for sports. There's specific cameras for casual use. There's specific cameras for landscape. There's specific cameras for whatever, like prime example, let's go even deeper with it. We have high resolution cameras like the Sony A7R4, or we have the Sony A1. We have, for sports cameras, we have the Canon 1DX Mark III, the recently released Canon R3. We also have the upcoming Nikon Z9. In terms of high megapixels, medium formats, we have the Hasselblad cameras. We have obviously the prevalent Fuji GFX 100S, which I still, being a photographer myself and doing portraits, that would be something I would love to upgrade to eventually. But right now, obviously my X-T4, amazing video quality, amazing photos that I get out of this thing. And then having my A7 III, so I can have that full frame look, and also having a little bit more, how would you say, capabilities in low light, or, things like that. The A7 III is definitely an extremely capable camera as well in its own right. Beautiful lenses that the Sony E-mount has. But in my opinion, specialization is key in this market. There's a reason why. Look at the iPhone lineup too. Let's just look at that. There's plenty of iPhones for different price ranges for different people. Now, do I think the Mini is for everybody? No. I'm just being honest with you. This thing is not for everybody, because there's downsides. There's some people that don't like the smaller display. There's some people that don't like the, say, smaller battery. There's people that don't like the fact that it doesn't have smart connectors. There's people that genuinely don't like that it doesn't have Face ID. I'm just being honest with you here. But I genuinely enjoy it. And if you guys want me to do a review, I'll go more in depth with actually talking about this thing and using it in the real world. Like, I've said it multiple times throughout this entire video and this entire episode that, yeah, it's a media device, but using it for actually out in the real world, like, actually using it, I can talk about that if you want me to. But for now, these are my impressions. I do believe a lot of the complaints with the iPad mini are very, I'm not saying they're not important, but I'm also saying you should take them with a grain of salt and actually use the product for yourself and not just let somebody else's opinion dictate if you enjoy a product or not. Because like I said, to you, you may not even notice this jello effect. You probably wouldn't. Like, think about it. The iPad Air had the same thing and no one talked about it at all. And now it's an issue for some reason. Let's just be real here, guys. This is literally just to cause some kind of ruckus. I know, oh my man, I sound so old saying that. But at the end of the day, this is what I think. I like the iPad mini, and obviously I love my case for it. It's amazing. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you like this episode? Did you not like this episode? Are you interested in the iPad mini? Are you probably going to get one? And if you want me to do a review, then let me know in the comments down below, or just vote on a poll that I'll probably put up on the social medias. But thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for allowing me to even have a piece of your time to just talk about what's on my mind and talk about how I'm enjoying this new product, or, you know, probably eventually talk about the laptop too, because I know there's people that probably want me to talk about it. But thank you guys so much for everything. It really does mean a lot to me. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I hope that you guys would keep me in your thoughts and prayers, because this week is going to be very, I wouldn't say busy or intense, but it's definitely going to be very important for me going forward, especially for my career after college. That the job fair is on Wednesday. So basically the day this episode goes live, I'll be at the job fair getting ready for that. And I just hope that everything goes well, that I'm put in favor with the companies, and that I just have a fun time, to be honest. And so I hope you guys just keep me in your thoughts and prayers regarding that, because I'm not worried about it, but I'm also like anxious to see how it turns out. But thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Thank you to Patreon backers for supporting the show. Thank you guys for all the total downloads. I really appreciate it. And as always, don't do anything dumb, guys. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Please be safe out there. Please continue to take care of everyone around you, because let's be real, the world is still a weird place, guys. It really is. Let's just continue to be kind, respectful, and courteous to those around us. But as always, like I said, don't do anything dumb, guys. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Hey there, thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.